Hi, this is Hugh Cushing from WhiteSource, and this is another of a series of videos about our Bitbucket integration. Uh, Today I'm going to talk about what is scanned and when and why, and also how the Bitbucket integration works behind the scenes. First of all, here's how you determine what's going to be scanned. First of all, a project has to be enabled for um, a for the Bitbucket integration. So if you go to the project settings, this WhiteSource integration should be here, and you should either have all repositories or certain selected repositories selected for it to work. Next, as we discussed in an earlier video, there has to be a .whitesource file in the root of the repository on the default branch, which in this case is master. Right? So this has to be here, and it has contents that we've talked about a bit in the previous video, telling WhiteSource how to scan. Second of all, what branches are scanned? Well, by default, all branches are scanned, okay? And the reason that is you see this default parameter in here in this section called base branches. So if it's blank like this, if it's an empty array, it's going to scan all branches. However, if you come in here and just put a branch or what have you, like that, then going forward, it's only going to kick off a scan when commits are made to those branches listed there. Okay. FYI, when you do that, it's actually going to create different projects in WhiteSource UI for different branches. But we will talk about that in another video. Okay, so this determines what branches are scanned. Now, third, what commits are scanned. Okay. What these icons are talking about is when the WhiteSource integration is kicked off. But it doesn't mean that we're actually going to do a scan just because a commit was made. We try to be intelligent about not scanning when there's no point in scanning. So if you go to the WhiteSource for Bitbucket Server documentation online here, there's a section called Triggering a New Scan in Bitbucket. And you'll see here, a scan is initiated via a valid push command. And a valid push command is either an added or removed file that could change the open source profile, like a new Java file that has a new import in it, for example. If we see one of those in the commits, or we see a change to the package manager file, such as pom.xml or requirements.txt or what have you, then we're going to kick off a scan. There's a third time where a scan is kicked off, and that is if you change the .whitesource configuration file itself. Great, so that talks about the projects, the repositories, the branches, and the commits that are scanned, and how you can change those in some cases. Next, I'd like to show you how a scan works once it's kicked off. Well, here's a high-level diagram. I won't go through all the flows, but basically behind the scenes, here's your Bitbucket server, and here's the WhiteSource Bitbucket app installed within the server. The app is putting webhooks onto certain events for enabled repositories, such as commits. So what happens is whenever a commit happens, the webhook notifies a container. So there's 3 containers that run to support the WhiteSource Bitbucket integration. There's the integration container, there's the scanner container, and the remediate container. And all of these can be scaled horizontally. You can have multiple containers to handle the load. This is kind of the nexus here, the integration container. That gets notified of the webhook. If it's a relevant change, like we talked about before, it actually notifies WhiteSource at sas.whitesourcesoftware.com under your tenant or your dedicated instance. There's something in there that you won't see, but is there called a persistence queue. So it actually will say, hey, this needs to be scanned. Okay. The reason we do it there is so that these containers are stateless and they can crash for whatever reason. But where the scan is the state of that is still retained by us in a basically some database tables that we host. It kicks that off. by putting something into the persistence queue. Meanwhile, the scanner container or containers is continually polling that queue to see if there's anything in it. And if there isn't something in it for them, it starts the scan. Okay. It's going to look, clone the code, clone the repo out of here. It's going to scan, and then it's going to report the results. Okay. Once that's done, the integration will see that that's done. It's looking to see when that scan is done, and when it is done, it'll create some issues back on Bitbucket, or the entries that you see to report security vulnerabilities and license violations and things like that. And if enabled, it'll then kick off the remediate container to tell the remediate container, please create automated pull requests to resolve the following security vulnerabilities. And the remediate server does its thing by creating those pull requests. So plenty more detail, but that's basically how it works. So you're basically firing up a lot of activity in 3 different containers, as well as the Bitbucket server, as well as on WhiteSourceSoftware.com whenever you do a so-called significant commit or a valid push to your repo.
Thank you for watching this presentation, and if you have further questions, please reach out to your WhiteSource representative, or you can visit our website for more information.